Chancellor, in recent months, our experience has been that notwithstanding all treaties, conventions, agreements, declarations of intention, the many countries have only been concerned to shift the problem to their neighbours. What gives some assurance that today's agreement will mean this declaration of intent will have other follow-up to it? Have you seen today a high point of European solidarity and spirit of community, or was it a low point? No, I would say neither. We're talking about a particular route today, and the states who are on that route participating in the meeting today, including 3 non-EU member states, have all shown responsibility. That responsibility is reflected in the creation of 50,000 places to provide a humane treatment for the refugees, to ensure better management. But of course it doesn't solve the overall problem. It's just a contribution towards a more reasonable way of dealing with the problem, as Mr. Guterres has said, a commitment to deal in a humane way with refugees in keeping with the Geneva Convention on refugees. But further steps will follow this, which will lead to a solution, burden sharing, and legalization. Turkey is an important role to play in this respect, and we'll need more time before we get to a fair burden sharing of the European Union. That wasn't the format for such a discussion, because that would be a discussion that all 28, 26, 25 member states would have to pursue, but certainly all those who are working together within the Dublin system. And that was not the purpose of today's meeting. But if we see the present situation is nonetheless an important meeting where we were able to declare how we're going to deal with the situation in a humane way. The other issues remain on the table. I've mentioned them. Turkey, and indeed working together with countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh. I'd just like to add, if I may, that it's 100,000 extra places altogether, with 50,000 in Greece, up to 30,000 by the end of the year, and 20,000 further ones with financial support from member states of the European Union. As far as the agreement is our expectation. And Mr. Kraus was asking about what's new. And I think it was important, considering all levels, and that's why I took this initiative, that here we had the Western Balkan countries talking amongst themselves to each other. Hitherto, that hasn't always been 100% the case. Each head of government could explain exactly where their country's problems were and how they could work on together with their neighbours, and I think it has been a very rewarding meeting in that respect.
Yeah.
A positive meeting.
Valentina.
Yes, hi, this is Valentina Pop with the Wall Street Journal. I have a question for both of you, for all three of you, if I may. What does it mean in practice? So far we've seen that people were moving quite swiftly within 10 days, 2 weeks from Turkey to Germany. Will you now see them stay for a week or 2 weeks, or for how long do you expect them to stay in each of these countries? And did you get an agreement from the prime ministers involved that they will no longer let them go on buses and trains and so on to the next border? Or what does it actually mean that you will slow down the influx? Thank you.
We have made clear to everyone this evening that waving them through has to be stopped, and that's what's going to happen. Now we have invited everyone to inform each other, so we won't have this wild border crossing situation, but the member states will consult other countries where the refugees are going through and inform them about the density of the flow of refugees. So that is a remarkable step forward. 50,000 additional places have to be created, first of all. That will be something for the UNHCR. That's not something that will happen overnight. The question of how long people will be waiting, well, that will depend on how many refugees we are dealing with, but we have reached an agreement on coordinated management.
I think it's important to underline that the objective is to replace this kind of movement by a regular movement of relocation from the point of entry to all European countries through a much more comfortable way, namely by plane. Obviously, we have not the conditions to immediately do it. We will need to create a strong reception capacity and a strong registration and screening capacity in Greece, and then the relocation put in place. But the objective is not to force people to go through the Balkans, country by country, border by border, to come to the country where they will be able to reach safety. In between, we will have a situation of transition that will still last some time, in which at least we need to make sure that the movement is not chaotic and that the conditions for people to be able to move with dignity and not to risk their lives and not to be entirely in the hands of smuggling networks that are one of the worst criminal organizations we have in today's world, that thing can be at least improved and regularized. But the objective is to create a system that I hope one day will be a permanent system, to create a system in which those that require protection in Europe will not need to put themselves into the hands of smugglers, both because there will be more legal avenues to come to Europe, and then because from the first point of entry, relocation will allow for them to move normally to the countries where they can have a new life.
Given the time, we take two more questions. Thomas Meyer.
Thomas Meyer vom Standard aus Wien. Ich habe eine Frage.
I have a question to Chancellor Merkel. 100,000 places are to be created along the whole route we've just heard. There's a lot of pressure between Croatia, Slovenia, Austria through to Germany. That's come up in the last few days. There have been reports since been sitting that 15,000 people altogether have come into Slovenia, who in these very hours will continue their way to Austria. The fear is now that these people will be sleeping along the road as in previous days. As Federal Chancellor, can you guarantee that Germany in the coming days and weeks will not tighten their borders so that these people will not continue to have to spend all their time out of doors? Well, the situation the last few days has been that all countries along the route, as within their own possibilities, have had to make their contributions. Slovenia has done this in an excellent way, trying very hard. Serbia too was very constructive in the meeting, and we will have to build up further capacity. What we're seeing is that at present many people are coming, and everyone therefore has to make their contribution. Germany will make its contribution too, but I hope that Germany won't have to make its contribution by itself. Austria will be making its contribution, and others too.
Kai Küstner, ARD Hörfunk. Frau Bundeskanzlerin.
Yes, Chancellor. From the famous delegations, it's being said that in today's discussions you warned of the end of the EU. Basically, that seems to suggest that the discussions weren't particularly easy. Is Europe at risk? That's a question that Mr. Juncker could answer as well if he would like to. Well, I can't really confirm what the delegations are saying, but I would repeat that this is one one of the greatest litmus tests that Europe has ever faced. We are being faced with global events, war, conflict at the very door of Europe. So far we haven't been affected so much, but we simply saw it all happening on television, and now these events are moving into the European Union itself. Faced with a litmus test like this, Europe has to demonstrate that it is a continent of values and solidarity. So that's why I say it's a test. This evening was a building stone, as it were, in the edifice, but we will need to take further steps in order to get through this litmus test. And I think that we've understood more what the reasons are for people fleeing, and we know that we have to support Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and basically we have to create the preconditions to be able to address the problem together. We haven't got there yet, but certainly a lot of important things have been done. For example, the willingness of Greece to say very practically how the reception of the refugees will happen at the external borders, better control of the external borders, and then how we can start implementing the distribution process so that we can manage things a lot better than we have so far. In previous days, Mrs. Merkel and I have said that this is certainly the biggest challenge of the last 40 or 50 years, and our concern was to ensure that people in the council, other people in the council, don't think that it's a problem that Germany, Austria and Sweden have to resolve themselves. It is not just a problem of Germany, Austria, Sweden and Netherlands, but it's a problem which affects everyone, wherever the problem actually arises in practice. The Western Balkan dialogue, the dialogue between the member states and the Western Balkan countries directly or indirectly affected by this problem, this discussion was of great importance.